Misogynist makes fun of female driver, her unexpected response leaves him speechless. The parking lot of the bustling downtown office building was packed. Cars maneuvered carefully in and out of tight spaces as drivers hurried about their business. Among them was Clara, a composed and meticulous woman who had just wrapped up a long day of meetings. Sliding into the driver's seat of her car, she adjusted her rearview mirror and took a calming breath. As she reversed out of her spot with precision, a loud honk startled her. She hit the brakes and looked around. Behind her was an older man in a battered sedan, gesturing wildly. He rolled down his window and shouted, "Hey, lady. Maybe leave the parking to someone who knows what they're doing." Clara frowned but said nothing, choosing instead to pull forward slightly to give him more room. But he wasn't done. He leaned further out of his car, his sneer visible even from a distance. What is it with women and cars? Always taking twice as long to park, and still doing it wrong. Several passers-by turned to look, some smirking while others exchanged uncomfortable glances. Clara felt the heat rise to her face but maintained her composure. She could feel his gaze burning into her as she parked properly, ensuring there was more than enough room for him to pass. When she got out of the car, he continued his tirade. "See, that wasn't so hard, was it? Maybe next time you'll get it right the first time." His tone dripped with condescension, and a few nearby bystanders chuckled nervously. Clara paused, locking her car with a calm, deliberate motion. She walked over to the man, standing tall and meeting his eyes. "Sir," she said evenly, her voice steady, "I appreciate your concern, but maybe you should focus more on your own driving. Your front bumper is hanging by a thread." The man's smug expression faltered as he glanced at his car. Sure enough, his front bumper was loose, the result of what appeared to be years of careless driving. Clara didn't wait for his response. She turned and walked away, leaving him stewing in embarrassment. Later that evening, Clara recounted the incident to her best friend, Emma, over coffee. "Why do people still think it's okay to act like that?" Clara asked, frustration evident in her tone. "It's 2025, for crying out loud. You'd think we'd be past these outdated stereotypes." Emma nodded, stirring her lot. "Men like that aren't used to being called out. They think they can get away with it because most people won't bother to stand up to them." "Well, I'm tired of staying quiet," Clara said firmly. "If I have to deal with another misogynistic comment about my driving, I might lose it." Emma smirked. "Maybe you should teach him a lesson. Show him exactly who he's messing with." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I already have something in mind." The next morning, Clara arrived at work earlier than usual. She'd learned from the building's receptionist that the man's name was Roger, and he worked in a different department of the same company. Armed with this information, Clara began to strategize. She wasn't looking to humiliate him. She wanted to prove a point, to challenge his perceptions in a way that would stick. During her lunch break, Clara sent an email to the company's HR team, suggesting a team-building activity that would include a driving challenge at a nearby racetrack. It was an unconventional idea, but Clara framed it as an opportunity to promote collaboration and boost morale. To her delight, HR approved the idea, and within a week, the event was scheduled. When the day of the event arrived, Clara stood at the entrance of the racetrack, clipboard in hand. Employees trickled in, curious but excited about the prospect of a day away from the office. Among them was Roger, who looked less than thrilled. "What's all this about?" he grumbled as he approached Clara. "I don't see how this has anything to do with work." "Good morning, Roger," Clara said with a polite smile. "It's a team-building exercise. I'm sure you'll enjoy it." Roger narrowed his eyes, clearly suspicious, but said nothing. He joined the rest of the group as they were briefed by the racetrack's instructors. The activity was simple, a timed obstacle course designed to test each participant's driving skills. Cones were set up to mimic tight parking spaces, and there were sections requiring precision steering and controlled acceleration. The instructors explained that the challenge would not only be fun but also highlight the importance of focus and adaptability, skills that could easily translate to the workplace. Roger, however, didn't look convinced. As the first few participants took their turns, he leaned over to his colleague and whispered, "This is just a gimmick. Probably set up so everyone gets a participation trophy." Clara, standing nearby, overheard the comment but didn't react. She simply waited for her turn. When Roger's name was called, he walked to the starting line with exaggerated confidence. "Watch and learn, everyone," he said, climbing into the driver's seat of the track car. The group chuckled, some out of amusement and others out of secondhand embarrassment. As the timer started, Roger sped off, weaving through the cones with reckless abandon. He knocked over several cones, narrowly missed others, and skidded to a halt at the finish line, tires screeching. His time wasn't terrible, but his lack of precision was obvious. "Not bad," one of the instructors said diplomatically. "But remember, it's not just about speed, it's about control." Roger waved him off. Speed is what wins races. When Clara's name was called, Roger leaned back against the fence, arms crossed. "This should be good," he muttered under his breath. Clara walked to the starting line, her demeanor calm and focused. She adjusted the seat and mirrors before starting the car, taking a moment to center herself. When the timer began, she accelerated smoothly, weaving through the cones with ease. Her movements were deliberate and precise, each turn executed with the confidence of someone who had done this 100 times before. By the time Clara crossed the finish line, her time was several seconds faster than Roger's, and not a single cone was out of place. The group erupted into applause, impressed by her skill. Roger's jaw tightened as Clara stepped out of the car, her expression neutral but triumphant. "It's not just about speed," she said, echoing the instructor's earlier words. "It's about control." The rest of the day continued with similar challenges, and Clara consistently outperformed the rest of the group, including Roger. By the end of the event, it was clear to everyone that her driving skills were unmatched. As the group gathered for a final debrief, Clara took a moment to address them. Today wasn't just about driving, it was about challenging ourselves and learning from each other. We all bring different strengths to the table, and when we respect those differences, we can accomplish amazing things. The group nodded in agreement, but Roger remained silent, his expression unreadable. Later, as the employees began to leave, Roger approached Clara hesitantly. For the first time, he looked unsure of himself. "Clara," he began, his voice low, "I owe you an apology. I was out of line the other day. And, well, you proved me wrong today." Clara smiled, her tone gracious but firm. "Apology accepted, Roger. But remember, respect isn't about proving someone wrong, it's about recognizing their worth from the start." Roger nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. "You're right. And I'll do better." As Roger walked away, Clara felt a sense of satisfaction. She hadn't just won a driving challenge, she had opened someone's eyes to the importance of respect and equality. And for her, that was the real victory. The aftermath of the team-building event lingered in the office for days. Clara's driving skills became the talk of the workplace. People approached her in the break room, curious to know where she had learned to handle a car like that. Some joked about getting lessons, while others simply praised her for putting on such a show. "Clara, you're like the office legend now," Emma said one afternoon, sliding into a chair across from Clara in the cafeteria. "Even people from other departments are talking about it." Clara chuckled, shaking her head. "I didn't do it to become a legend. I just wanted to make a point." "Well, you made it loud and clear," Emma said, grinning. "Even Roger seems to have gotten the message. I saw him hold the door open for Cindy earlier. I don't think I've ever seen him do that before." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Really," Emma confirmed. "I think you might have actually sparked some change in him." Roger, for his part, had been unusually quiet since the event. He still kept to himself most of the time, but there was a noticeable shift in his behavior. The dismissive comments and smug remarks that had once defined him were nowhere to be heard. Instead, he seemed more thoughtful, more reserved. One afternoon, Clara found herself alone in the elevator with Roger. The silence between them was heavy, but Clara could tell he was working up the courage to say something. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Clara," he began, his tone hesitant, "I wanted to thank you." Clara turned to him, surprised. "Thank me? For what?" "For not just letting me get away with being, well, an ass," Roger admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "You could have just ignored me, but instead, you showed me how wrong I was. And you did it without tearing me down. That takes a lot of class. Clara smiled softly. It wasn't about tearing you down, Roger. It was about showing you that we're all capable of more than people give us credit for, including you. Roger looked at her, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. I'm trying to be better. I just thought you should know that. Clara nodded. That's all anyone can do. Keep trying. As the weeks went on, Clara noticed other changes in Roger. He began volunteering to help coworkers with tasks, something he had rarely done before. He listened more during meetings, no longer dominating the conversation with his opinions. It was clear that he was making an effort, and while he still had a long way to go, Clara respected the progress he was making. One day, Roger approached Clara with an unexpected proposal. Hey Clara, he said, shifting awkwardly. I was wondering if you'd like to grab lunch sometime. My treat. I figure it's the least I can do after, everything. Clara considered the offer for a moment before nodding. Sure, Roger. Lunch sounds good. They met at a small cafe near the office, the atmosphere casual but friendly. For the first time, Clara saw a different side of Roger. He talked about his family, his love for classic cars, and even admitted that he had struggled with his confidence growing up. I guess I overcompensated, Roger said, stirring his coffee. Made myself seem bigger than I really felt. But that didn't make me a better person. It just made me insufferable. Clara listened, her expression thoughtful. It's never too late to change, Roger. What matters is that you're trying. Thanks, Roger said, offering her a small smile. And for what it's worth, I really do respect you, Clara. You're one of the most capable people I've ever met. Clara smiled back. I appreciate that. The lunch marked a turning point in their relationship. While they would never be best friends, there was a newfound mutual respect between them. Roger continued to grow, and Clara found herself quietly rooting for him. Meanwhile, Clara's own career was flourishing. Her leadership during the team-building event had caught the attention of upper management, and she was soon offered a promotion to oversee her department. The opportunity came with more responsibilities, but also the chance to make an even bigger impact. As she settled into her new role, Clara began advocating for initiatives to create a more inclusive workplace. She pushed for workshops on unconscious bias, mentorship programs for underrepresented employees, and team-building events that focused on collaboration rather than competition. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. One afternoon, her manager called her into his office to share some good news. Clara, he said, smiling warmly, I wanted to let you know that the board has approved your proposal for the mentorship program. It'll be rolling out next quarter. Clara's face lit up. That's fantastic. Thank you for supporting it. It's well-deserved, her manager said. You've proven time and again that you're a leader who lifts others up. We're lucky to have you. The mentorship program quickly became one of Clara's proudest achievements. Employees across the company signed up, eager to learn from one another and build stronger connections. Clara paired senior staff with newer employees, fostering an environment where everyone felt valued. One day, as she reviewed the program's progress, Clara received an email that made her pause. It was from Roger. Subject, thank you. Hi Clara. I just wanted to say thank you for putting this mentorship program together. I signed up as a mentor, and it's been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Working with my mentee has taught me so much, not just about them, but about myself. None of this would have happened without you. Thanks for giving me a chance to be better. Roger. Clara smiled as she read the email. It was a reminder that even the smallest actions, like standing up to a bully or challenging a stereotype, could create ripples of change. Months turned into years, and the culture of the company continued to evolve. Clara's mentorship program became a cornerstone of the organization, inspiring other companies to adopt similar initiatives. Her influence extended far beyond the office walls, and she was often invited to speak at conferences and workshops on leadership and inclusivity. Through it all, Clara remained grounded. She never sought recognition for her work. Her satisfaction came from knowing she was making a difference. One evening, as Clara left the office, she noticed Roger standing by her car. He held a small envelope in his hands, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Roger? Clara said, approaching him. What's going on? I just wanted to give you this, he said, handing her the envelope. It's nothing big, but I thought you might like it. Curious, Clara opened the envelope and found a handwritten note along with a small keychain shaped like a steering wheel. Clara, you taught me what it means to steer your life in the right direction. Thank you for showing me the way. Roger. Clara looked up, her heart swelling. Roger, this is really thoughtful. Thank you. He shrugged, a sheepish smile on his face. It's the least I could do. You've done more for me than you realize. As Clara drove home that night, the keychain dangling from her rearview mirror, she reflected on how much had changed. The man who had once mocked her for her driving had become one of her greatest advocates. And she, in turn, had learned that even the most stubborn people could change if given the right opportunity. Clara smiled to herself, the road stretching out before her. It wasn't always easy to stand up for what was right, but moments like this made it all worthwhile. Months after Roger's heartfelt gesture, Clara's life had settled into a steady rhythm. Her leadership in the company and the mentorship program had transformed her department into a model of collaboration and mutual respect. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that her journey with Roger's transformation still had another chapter to unfold. One crisp autumn morning, Clara arrived at the office to find an unexpected invitation in her inbox. It was from Roger, of all people. Subject: Community Event Invitation. Hi Clara. I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to personally invite you to a community event I've been working on with a local youth group. We're hosting a Drive with Purpose workshop to teach teens about safe driving, basic car maintenance, and the importance of responsibility on the road. It would mean a lot if you could attend, maybe even help out if you're interested. Let me know if you're free. Clara read the email twice, her eyebrows raised in surprise. Roger organizing a community event? It was a far cry from the dismissive, self-centered man she had met months ago. She smiled to herself. The change in him was not just real, it was inspiring. She replied almost immediately. Hi Roger. Thanks for the invite. I'd be happy to attend. Let me know how I can help. Clara. The following Saturday, Clara drove to the community center where the workshop was being held. The parking lot was bustling with activity. Teens and their parents milled about, some gathered around a line of cars while others listened to volunteers explaining the basics of engine maintenance. Tables with pamphlets on safe driving tips and local resources were set up, and there was a small stage at the front of the lot. Clara spotted Roger near one of the tables, his sleeves rolled up and his hands covered in grease as he showed a group of teenagers how to check their oil. She couldn't help but smile. He looked completely in his element. Clara, Roger called out when he noticed her. He wiped his hands on a rag and walked over. You made it. Of course, Clara said, gesturing to the lively scene around them. This is incredible, Roger. I had no idea you were involved in something like this. Roger shrugged, a touch of humility in his expression. It started as a small idea. I wanted to do something to give back, especially after everything you've taught me. The teens love it, and honestly, so do I. Clara nodded, genuinely impressed. Well, let me know how I can help. Roger quickly put Clara to work, assigning her to lead a session on defensive driving techniques. Clara approached the task with her usual blend of confidence and professionalism, engaging the teens with practical advice and real-life examples. Her calm demeanor and clear instructions won over the crowd, and by the end of the session, several parents came up to thank her for sharing her knowledge. As the day went on, Clara couldn't help but notice how much Roger had changed. He wasn't just organizing the event, he was actively connecting with people, listening to their stories, and offering encouragement. The man who had once mocked her in a parking lot now seemed genuinely dedicated to making a positive impact. During a break, Clara and Roger sat on a bench overlooking the event. Roger handed her a bottle of water, his expression thoughtful. Do you ever think about how we got here? He asked, a wry smile tugging at his lips. I mean, a year ago, I was the guy yelling at you in a parking lot. And now, Clara laughed softly. Life has a funny way of surprising us. I think the important thing is that you chose to change. That's not easy, Roger. He nodded, his gaze distant for a moment. You know, I didn't just wake up one day and decide to be better. It was you, Clara. That day in the parking lot, you didn't yell back or make me feel small. You just showed me I was wrong, and you did it with dignity. It stuck with me." Clara looked at him, her expression warm. "I'm glad I could help, but you're the one who did the work. And look at this event, it's incredible." Roger smiled, the sincerity in his eyes undeniable. "Thanks. That means a lot." As the day wound down, the teens and their families gathered near the stage for closing remarks. Roger stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady but humble as he thanked everyone for coming and acknowledged the volunteers who had made the event possible. "I want to share something with you all," Roger said, his tone becoming more personal. "A year ago, I wasn't the person you see here today. I was quick to judge, slow to listen, and I let my ego get in the way of being the kind of person I wanted to be. But someone showed me a different path. They taught me that respect isn't something you demand, it's something you earn by treating others with kindness and understanding." His eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Clara. "That person is here today, and I owe her more than I can ever repay. Clara, thank you for teaching me what it means to lead with respect. This event wouldn't exist without you." The crowd erupted into applause as Roger stepped away from the microphone, and Clara felt her cheeks flush with a mix of pride and humility. She hadn't expected to be acknowledged, but the gesture was deeply touching. After the event, as the parking lot emptied out, Clara and Roger lingered behind to help clean up. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the scene. "You know," Clara said, stacking chairs onto a cart, "if you keep this up, you might just become the role model you were always meant to be." Roger chuckled, shaking his head. "I'm not sure about that, but I'll keep trying. That's all we can do, right?" "Right," Clara said, smiling. "And for what it's worth, I think you're doing an amazing job." Roger looked at her, a rare vulnerability in his expression. "That means more than you know." As Clara drove home that evening, she couldn't stop thinking about how far Roger had come. The man she had once written off as irredeemable had proven her wrong in the best possible way. And in the process, he had reminded her of something important. People are capable of change, but sometimes they just need someone to believe in them. The keychain Roger had given her swung gently from her rearview mirror, catching the light as she turned onto the highway. Clara smiled to herself, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had set out to prove a point, but what she had gained was so much more. A reminder that the smallest actions can create ripples that transform lives. And as the city lights came into view, Clara knew her journey was far from over. There were still battles to fight, lessons to teach, and lives to touch. But for now, she was content to enjoy the road ahead, 1 mile at a time. The following weeks were a whirlwind for Clara. The success of Roger's event, combined with her promotion and the growing reputation of the mentorship program, meant her days were packed with meetings, planning sessions, and community outreach. But amid the chaos, Clara felt a sense of clarity and purpose. For the first time in years, she wasn't just doing her job, she was building something meaningful. One morning, as Clara sipped her coffee at her desk, an email popped into her inbox with the subject line, "Speaking Opportunity, the Power of Respect and Change." Curious, she opened it. The email was from a representative of a national leadership conference, inviting Clara to speak about her experience leading the mentorship program and fostering inclusivity at work. They had heard about her efforts through one of the executives at her company and believed her story could inspire other professionals. Clara leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Public speaking wasn't exactly her favorite thing, but the opportunity felt too important to pass up. After a moment's hesitation, she hit replying and typed out a quick acceptance. Preparing for the conference wasn't easy. Clara spent her evenings drafting and revising her speech, trying to strike the right balance between personal anecdotes and actionable advice. Emma, ever the supportive friend, became her sounding board. "You've got this," Emma said one night as Clara rehearsed in her living room. "Just speak from the heart. That's what people connect with." Clara nodded, taking a deep breath. "You're right. I just hope it resonates." When the day of the conference arrived, Clara stood backstage, her hands clasped tightly around a small stack of index cards. She could hear the buzz of the audience, a mix of corporate leaders, educators, and community organizers, waiting for her to take the stage. Next up, the MC announced, We have Clara Evans, a leader and advocate for inclusivity in the workplace. Clara has transformed her company's culture with her innovative mentorship program and her commitment to empowering others. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage. The applause that followed was warm and encouraging. Clara stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. She took her place behind the podium, her heart pounding, and began. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "When I was first asked to speak here, I wasn't sure I was the right person for the job. After all, I'm not a CEO or a best-selling author. I'm just someone who believes in the power of respect and connection." She paused, scanning the faces in the crowd. "But then I realized that's exactly why I'm here. Because the work I've done, work that I'm incredibly proud of, started with something small. It started with a single moment." Clara went on to recount the story of the parking lot incident with Roger, sharing how it had led to a ripple effect of change within her company and beyond. She spoke about the mentorship program, the community events, and the importance of creating spaces where everyone feels valued. "Change doesn't happen overnight," she said, her voice growing more confident. "And it doesn't happen because of one person. It happens when we come together, when we challenge our assumptions and choose to see the best in each other." By the time Clara finished, the audience was on their feet, applauding enthusiastically. Clara stepped back from the podium, her chest swelling with pride and relief. She had done it. After the speech, attendees approached Clara to thank her for sharing her story. Some asked for advice on starting their own mentorship programs, while others simply expressed how much her words had resonated with them. Clara was overwhelmed by the positive feedback, but one interaction stood out. A young woman, no older than 25, approached Clara with tears in her eyes. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "I've always felt overlooked at work, like my ideas didn't matter. Hearing you talk about creating spaces where everyone feels valued, it gave me hope." Clara placed a reassuring hand on the woman's shoulder. "Your ideas matter. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. And if you ever need advice, don't hesitate to reach out." The woman smiled through her tears. "Thank you. I will." The conference was a turning point for Clara. It not only boosted her confidence but also opened doors she hadn't even considered. Over the next few months, she was invited to participate in panels, write articles, and even collaborate with other organizations on inclusivity initiatives. One day, as Clara worked on a proposal for a regional mentorship network, she received a call from an unfamiliar number. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello. Claire, hi. It's Roger." Clara blinked in surprise. "Roger, it's been a while. How are you?" "I'm good," he said, his tone warm but slightly nervous. "Actually, I'm calling because I have an idea, and I think you're the perfect person to help make it happen." Clara leaned back in her chair, intrigued. "I'm listening." "Well," Roger began, "after the success of the Drive with Purpose workshop, I started thinking about how we could expand the concept. What if we created a program that traveled to different communities, offering workshops on driving, maintenance, and even life skills? Kind of like a mobile empowerment center." Clara's eyes lit up. "Roger, that's an amazing idea. Really? You think it could work?" Roger asked, sounding both excited and relieved. "Absolutely," Clara said. "And I'd be happy to help." Over the next several months, Clara and Roger worked tirelessly to bring the idea to life. They secured funding, partnered with local organizations, and designed a program that combined practical skills with personal development. The initiative, called Wheels of Change, launched with its first workshop in a small town just outside the city. The response was overwhelming. Families, teens, and even senior citizens came out to participate, eager to learn and connect. Clara led sessions on defensive driving and empowerment, while Roger handled the technical workshops. Together, they created an atmosphere of learning and camaraderie that left a lasting impact on everyone who attended. As the program expanded, Clara and Roger grew closer, not just as colleagues but as friends. They often reflected on how far they had come since their first encounter in the parking lot. "Who would have thought we'd end up here?" Roger said one evening as they packed up after a workshop. Clara laughed, shaking her head. Certainly not me. But I'm glad we did. Me too, Roger said, his expression thoughtful. You've changed my life, Clara. And I'll always be grateful for that. Clara smiled, her heart full. You've changed mine too, Roger. And that's the beauty of this whole journey. We've grown together. Years later, as Clara stood in front of a packed auditorium to accept an award for her work with Wheels of Change, she thought about all the moments that had led her to this point. The parking lot incident, the team-building event, the mentorship program, it had all started with a single choice to stand up for herself and for what she believed in. As she accepted the award, Clara looked out at the audience, her gaze landing on Roger, who was sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. She raised the trophy slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had shared. This isn't just my award, Clara said into the microphone. It belongs to everyone who believes in the power of respect, connection, and second chances. Together, we can create a world where everyone feels valued, and that's a legacy worth building. The applause that followed was thunderous, but Clara's thoughts were calm and steady. She had found her purpose, and she knew there were still countless roads to travel, lessons to learn, and lives to touch. And she was ready for all of it. The success of Wheels of Change was nothing short of remarkable. Over the next few years, the program expanded to cover more than 20 cities across the country. Workshops were held in community centers, schools, and even parking lots, anywhere people could gather to learn and grow. Clara and Roger became the faces of the initiative, their story of transformation and collaboration inspiring countless individuals. Despite her packed schedule, Clara always made time to connect with participants on a personal level. She believed that every interaction, no matter how small, had the potential to leave a lasting impact. One afternoon, during a workshop in a small coastal town, she met a teenager named Lily. Lily was 17, quiet and reserved, with a spark in her eyes that hinted at untapped potential. She lingered on the edges of the group, observing but hesitant to engage. Clara noticed her right away and made a point to approach her during a break. "Hi, I'm Clara," she said, offering a warm smile. "What's your name?" "Lily," the teenager replied softly. "It's nice to meet you, Lily. Are you enjoying the workshop so far?" Lily nodded but didn't say much. Clara could tell there was more beneath the surface, so she gently encouraged her. "You know, when I was your age, I was really shy too. But I learned that sometimes, stepping out of your comfort zone can lead to amazing things." Lily looked up at her, curiosity flickering in her expression. "How did you do it?" Clara smiled. "One step at a time. And I had people who believed in me, which made all the difference. If there's something you're passionate about, don't be afraid to chase it. You never know where it might take you." As the workshop continued, Clara kept an eye on Lily, offering her small opportunities to participate. By the end of the day, Lily had stepped up to help with a tire-changing demonstration, her confidence growing with each moment. When the workshop ended, she approached Clara with a shy smile. "Thank you," Lily said, "for believing in me." Clara's heart swelled. "Always, Lily. And if you ever need advice or just someone to talk to, I'm here." Lily nodded, clutching the pamphlets she had collected during the workshop. Clara watched her walk away, knowing she had planted a seed of confidence that would hopefully continue to grow. Back in the office, Clara and Roger were busy planning the next phase of Wheels of Change. They had recently secured a partnership with a national automotive company, which would provide funding and resources to expand the program even further. It was an exciting development, but it also came with new challenges. "We're going to need more volunteers," Roger said one afternoon as they reviewed the logistics. "And probably a bigger team to manage everything?" Clara nodded, her mind already racing with ideas. "We can start by reaching out to past participants. A lot of them might be interested in giving back." "That's a great idea," Roger agreed. "And we could offer them leadership roles within the program, give them a chance to grow while helping others." As they brainstormed, Clara couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride in how far they had come. What had started as a small initiative was now a nationwide movement, and it was all built on the foundation of respect, connection, and shared purpose. One evening, after a particularly long day, Clara found herself reflecting on her journey. She thought about her father, who had always taught her to stand up for herself and treat others with kindness. She thought about the parking lot encounter with Roger, which had sparked a chain of events she could never have predicted. And she thought about all the people she had met along the way, people like Lily, who reminded her why this work mattered. Clara decided to write down her thoughts, not for anyone else but for herself. She opened her laptop and began typing, letting the words flow freely. The Ripple Effect, by Clara Evans. It's strange how one moment can change everything. A single interaction, a choice to act instead of staying silent, can set off a chain of events that ripple outward in ways you never imagined. When I stood up to Roger that day in the parking lot, I wasn't thinking about making a difference. I was frustrated, tired of the same old stereotypes and the dismissive comments that women face every day. But looking back, I realized that moment wasn't just about me, it was about planting a seed. Roger could have dismissed me, written me off as just another angry woman. But instead, he chose to listen. He chose to reflect, to change, to grow. And because of that, he didn't just transform himself, he helped create something bigger than both of us. Wheels of Change is proof that even the smallest actions can lead to something extraordinary. It's a reminder that when we believe in each other, when we choose respect over judgment, we can create a world where everyone feels valued. I've learned that leadership isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about listening, about lifting others up, and about creating spaces where people can thrive. It's about taking those ripples and turning them into waves. So if you ever wonder whether your actions matter, whether you can make a difference, remember this: every ripple starts with a single drop. And you never know how far it will travel. When Clara finished writing, she leaned back in her chair, feeling a sense of closure. The journey wasn't over, there was still so much work to do, but she felt at peace with how far she had come. The next morning, she shared the essay with Emma, who read it with tears in her eyes. "Clara, this is beautiful," Emma said. "You need to share this with the world." Clara hesitated. "I wrote it for myself. I'm not sure if it's something people would want to read." "Trust me," Emma said firmly. "People need to hear this. It's powerful." A few weeks later, Clara's essay was published on a popular leadership blog, where it quickly went viral. Messages poured in from readers around the world, sharing their own stories of transformation and thanking Clara for her words. The essay became a rallying cry for those who believed in the power of respect and connection. Among the messages was one from Lily, who wrote, "Hi Clara, I just wanted to say thank you again for believing in me. Your essay inspired me to apply for an internship at an automotive company, and I got it. I'm nervous, but I'm also excited to keep growing. You changed my life, and I'll always be grateful." Clara smiled as she read the message, her heart full. The ripples were still spreading, and she couldn't wait to see where they would lead next. As the years went on, Wheels of Change continued to flourish, reaching new heights and touching countless lives. Clara and Roger remained at the helm, their partnership stronger than ever. Together, they proved that even the smallest actions could create waves of change that reshaped the world. And through it all, Clara never forgot the lesson that had guided her from the very beginning. Every ripple starts with a single drop. And when you choose to act with courage, kindness, and purpose, those ripples can change everything. As the reach of Wheels of Change expanded, Clara and Roger found themselves busier than ever. Each new city they visited brought fresh challenges but also countless opportunities to make a difference. From small towns to bustling urban centers, their workshops continued to empower communities, one person at a time. One day, as Clara was wrapping up a workshop in a Midwestern town, she noticed an older man lingering by the edge of the crowd. He was tall and weathered, with calloused hands and a quiet demeanor that made him seem like an observer rather than a participant. Clara approached him, sensing that he had something to say. "Hi there," she said warmly. "Did you enjoy the workshop?" The man nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I did. It's a great thing you're doing here." "Thank you," Clara replied. "I'm glad you came. Are you a writer?" The man hesitated before answering. "Used to be. Back in the day, my bike was everything to me. But life got in the way, and I had to give it up." Clara nodded, her voice softening. "Sometimes we have to put our passions on hold." But it's never too late to pick them back up. The man gave a small smile, his eyes glinting with a hint of nostalgia. Maybe you're right. My name's Jack, by the way. It's nice to meet you, Jack. I'm Clara, she said, extending her hand. Over the course of the day, Jack opened up to Clara about his life. He had spent decades working long hours to provide for his family, sacrificing his own dreams in the process. Now retired, he felt adrift, unsure of how to fill his days. Coming here today reminded me of how much I used to love being on the road, Jack said, his voice tinged with longing. I don't know if I still have it in me, though. Clara placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You'd be surprised at what you're capable of. If you ever decide to get back into writing, we'd be happy to help. Jack nodded, his smile growing. Thank you. That means a lot. A few weeks later, Clara was back at the office when she received an email from Jack. Attached was a photo of him standing next to a gleaming Harley-Davidson, his face beaming with pride. Subject: back on the road. Hi Clara. I just wanted to thank you for giving me the push I needed. I found this beauty at a local dealership, and I couldn't resist. It feels like I've gotten a piece of myself back. Hope to see you at another workshop soon. Clara couldn't help but smile as she read the email. It was moments like these that reminded her why she had dedicated her life to this work. The ripple effect was real, and every story like Jack's was proof that even the smallest acts of encouragement could change someone's life. Meanwhile, Roger had been busy working on a new project. Inspired by the success of Wheels of Change, he had begun developing a series of online tutorials to reach people who couldn't attend the workshops in person. The videos covered everything from basic car maintenance to defensive driving techniques, with Roger's signature mix of humor and practicality. When Roger presented the idea to Clara, she was immediately on board. This is brilliant, she said, scrolling through the draft scripts he had written. We've been talking about scaling the program, and this is the perfect way to do it. Glad you think so, Roger said, grinning. And I was thinking, you should host some of the videos? Clara raised an eyebrow. Me? I'm not exactly a natural on camera. Roger laughed. Neither am I, but that's not the point. People connect with you, Claire. Your story, your authenticity, it's what makes this whole thing work. Trust me, you'll be great. Reluctantly, Clara agreed to give it a try. The first few filming sessions were awkward, with Clara stumbling over her lines and feeling self-conscious about the cameras. But with Roger's encouragement, she began to relax, letting her natural warmth and expertise shine through. The videos were a hit. Within weeks of launching the online platform, they began receiving messages from viewers around the world. One woman from South Africa wrote to say that she had used the tutorials to teach her teenage son how to drive. A single father from Canada shared how the maintenance tips had saved him hundreds of dollars in repair costs. Clara and Roger were thrilled by the response. The videos allowed them to reach more people than they ever could in person, and the stories they received were a constant source of motivation. One day, Clara received a particularly touching message from a young woman named Sophia. She was a recent immigrant who had been struggling to navigate her new life in the United States. Without a car or the skills to maintain one, she felt isolated and overwhelmed. But after watching Clara's tutorials, Sophia had gained the confidence to buy her first used car and learn how to care for it. Your videos gave me the courage to take control of my life, Sophia wrote. I feel independent for the first time in years. Thank you for helping me believe in myself. Clara shared the message with Roger, her eyes brimming with tears. This is why we do what we do, she said softly. Roger nodded, his expression serious. It's easy to forget how much of a difference we're making when we're caught up in the day-to-day. But messages like this, they keep us grounded. As the months went on, Clara and Roger continued to innovate and expand their efforts. They launched a scholarship program for young people interested in automotive careers, partnered with local schools to bring hands-on workshops into classrooms, and even organized a cross-country ride to raise funds for underserved communities. The ride was one of the most ambitious projects they had undertaken. It spanned over 3,000 miles, with stops in dozens of cities along the way. Riders from all walks of life joined the journey, forming a convoy that stretched for miles. Clara rode at the front of the group, her heart full as she looked back at the sea of bikes behind her. Each rider had their own story, their own reason for being there. Together, they were a testament to the power of connection and shared purpose. By the time they reached their final destination, the ride had raised over $500,000, money that would go toward expanding Wheels of Change even further. At the closing ceremony, Clara stood on stage with Roger, looking out at the crowd of riders and supporters who had made it all possible. "We started this journey with a simple idea," Clara said, her voice strong and clear. "That respect, empowerment, and connection can change lives. Today, I see proof of that all around me. Thank you for believing in this mission and for being part of something bigger than ourselves." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, the sound echoing across the open field. Roger stepped up to the microphone, a rare moment of seriousness in his usually light-hearted demeanor. "And thank you, Clara," he said, turning to her, "for being the heart of all this. None of us would be here without you." Clara felt a lump rise in her throat as the crowd cheered again. She glanced at Roger, a mixture of gratitude and pride in her eyes. They had come so far and there was still so much more to do. But for now, she allowed herself to soak in the moment, surrounded by the community they had built together. As Clara rode home that evening, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and gold, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. It had started with a single moment, a decision to stand up for herself and demand respect. That moment had grown into something she could never have imagined, touching lives across the country and beyond. Clara glanced at the keychain hanging from her rearview mirror, the small steering wheel swinging gently with the motion of the car. It was a reminder of where she had started and a symbol of everything she had built. The road ahead was endless, but Clara knew one thing for certain: she was exactly where she was meant to be.